Captain Hayes stood alone on the observation deck, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the stars. The vastness of space always calmed him, reminded him of how small each being truly was. Yet tonight his calm was fragile, for the alien princess had arrived under dire circumstances. The shuttle's airlock had hissed open moments ago. He had rushed forward to meet her, guided by the crew's whispers of her distress. When she stepped out, she looked smaller than he had imagined. Her skin was pale, violet, smooth, like polished stone, and her long hair fell in gentle waves around her slender shoulders. Her eyes, wide and full of fear, shone with tears. She wore a simple robe of deep blue, embroidered with silver patterns that glimmered under the soft lights. Twilight shone on her face, highlighting the trembling of her lips. Without hesitation, she ran forward and clung to him, wrapping her thin arms around his waist. Her grip was desperate. Captain Hayes felt the warmth of her tears soaking through his uniform. He knelt without a word, letting her lean on him as her sobs broke free. Her gentle cries echoed in the deck's vast silence, filling the space with urgent grief. Officers and crew gathered at a distance. Some exchanged worried looks. None knew how to approach a princess in such pain. Captain Hayes remained still, his presence strong and calm. He reached a hand up and brushed a lock of hair from her tear-streaked cheek. His touch was light, meant to assure her that she need not fear. "You are safe here," he said softly. His voice was gentle, steady. "We will help you." The princess's sobs slowed, and she drew a shuddering breath. She lifted her head and looked at him with eyes that seemed centuries old. He saw in them a deep sorrow, a loss so vast that no words could capture it. She opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, tears falling onto the deck. After a moment, she let go of him. Her posture was small, shoulders hunched. Captain Hayes rose too, offering her his hand. She hesitated, then took it. He led her into the nearby medical bay, a quiet space filled with soft light and warm instruments. There they would have privacy, and he could learn her story. Nurse Ellis stood ready, concern clear on her face. She offered blankets and warm water. The princess sank into a cushioned chair, still trembling. Nurse Ellis draped a soft blanket around her shoulders and set a cup of warm herb tea on a small table. The steam curled in the air, carrying a gentle scent of honey and flowers. Captain Hayes sat across from the princess. He waited until Nurse Ellis left them alone, closing the door quietly behind her. Then he leaned forward. "I'm Captain Samuel Hayes of Starship Horizon," he said. "Please, you may tell me your name." The princess's voice was barely a whisper. I am Princess Solara of the Arinthian realm." "Princess Solara," Hayes repeated gently. "It is an honor. Oh, you may trust me." Solara nodded, her large eyes reflecting pain. She clutched the blanket at her chest. "My world fell," she began. Her voice trembled. "We had peace for centuries. Our allies promised protection. We believed them. But when the Devron fleet attacked, our allies turned away." Her words came slowly, each one weighted with grief. Hayes listened, heart growing heavy. He imagined the peaceful cities of Arinthia, their towers of white crystal, gardens floating on the air, pictured them torn apart by furious enemy ships, flames licking at marble walls. "I watched my people fall," Solara continued. "I saw my friends, my family, taken from me." Her voice cracked. "Our king begged for mercy. Our queen begged for mercy. Yet our allies did nothing. They left us to die." Hayes swallowed, pain burning in his chest. He reached out, covering her hand with his. His touch was firm, reassuring. "I am sorry," he said simply. Solara's tears returned. She lowered her head, her shoulders shaking. Hayes waited, giving her space to weep. After some moments, she lifted her head again, her eyes red but resolute. "I escaped with a small vessel," she said. "I carried only this." She touched a pendant at her throat, a small crystal that glowed faintly with memory light. "Is the record of the betrayal. Evidence that can hold our allies accountable." Hayes nodded. He studied the pendant. It was smooth and cool, oval in shape, suspended by a thin silver chain. Its surface was etched with tiny symbols that pulsed softly. "We will protect it," he promised. "We will listen to your story. Then we will decide how best to help Orinthia." Solara looked at him, and for the first time, hope flickered in her pale violet eyes. She allowed herself a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Captain," she said. Hayes offered a gentle bow of the head. "Rest now, Princess. You have endured much. When you are ready, I will hear more." Solara's breathing steadied as she leaned back in the chair. Hayes stood and moved to a console by the wall. He tapped a command, sending a secure message to the Horizons Council liaison and diplomatic officer. They would need to prepare to receive Princess Solara's testimony and evidence. The fate of an entire world might hang in the balance. He returned to Solara's side and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I will be back soon," he said, nodded once, and closed her eyes. Hayes left the room quietly, giving her the rest she needed. In the corridor outside, Hayes paused. He looked up at the stars visible through the viewports. He thought of the burden Solara carried and the promise he made. He felt the weight of leadership, the responsibility to act with honor. But he felt determination, too. Humanity had risen among the stars not to conquer worlds, but to protect those in need. He stepped forward, ready to face the challenges ahead. Princess Solara had placed her trust in him. He would not fail. This was only the beginning of their journey, a journey that would test every ounce of courage, wisdom, and compassion he possessed. And as Starship Horizon slid silently through the void toward Orinthia, he vowed to stand by her until justice was served and her world found hope. Again, Captain Hayes moved quickly through the corridors of the Horizon, his mind alive with plans. He paused at the briefing room where Lieutenant Rossi and Diplomat Chan waited. The room glowed with soft lights and holoscreens. Hayes tapped one screen, and Solara's pendant image appeared, pulsing with memory light. Rossi bent closer, studying the tiny symbols etched on its surface. "This is unlike any human tech," he said quietly. Chan nodded, lips pressed together. "It holds the record of the betrayal," Hayes reminded them. "We must protect it until we reach the council." Outside, Solara paced in a secure cabin, her pale violet skin bright in the soft glow of the star. She held the pendant tightly, her knuckles white. Hayes entered the cabin and offered a gentle bow. "Princess Solara," he said. Relief in her eyes, he gestured toward a viewing port. Beyond the thick glass, the planet Orinthia grew larger each second. Its ruined cities and broken domes shone like scraps of metal beneath dark clouds. Solara's hand trembled as she stared. Hayes placed a hand on her shoulder. "We are almost there," he said. She drew a shaky breath and nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. In that moment, Hayes saw her resolve. She was determined to face her world's fate. In the Council's starbase, orbiting Orinthia, the Great Hall lay empty. Massive pillars rose toward a vaulted ceiling, and hollow projectors hung like silent watchers. Chan stepped forward and initiated a secure channel. Speaker illuminated with the emblem of the Council. Voices greeted them with polite tones, but Hayes heard the edge of doubt. "Captain Hayes of Earth," the speaker said, "we have received your message. Proceed to the chamber." Hayes inclined his head. "Thank you. We'll be there soon." He turned to Solara and Rossi. "This is it," he said softly. Solara nodded, eyes steady. They entered the chamber, a circular space lined with seats for each member of the council. At its center, a raised dais awaited. Solara's pale form stood out against the dark metal of the room. When the council members arrived, their faces glowed on the holoscreens around them. Some wore formal uniforms, others robes of distant worlds. Hayes led Solara to the dais and bowed. She stepped forward, holding the pendant. "Honorable Council," she began, her voice clear despite her nerves. "I bring evidence of betrayal that led to the fall of Orinthia." She held up the pendant. Gasps echoed through the chamber. One council member, Envoy Marok of the Korvax Order, frowned. Princess Solara, your claims are serious. We trust this device? Solara swallowed and raised the pendant closer to the central hollow projector. It levitated, held by invisible force. The symbols glowed softly. Solara pressed a symbol on its side. Images appeared on the holoscreen. Crystal towers falling under fire, soldiers pleading for help, allied ships idling at a safe distance. The sound of alarms and distant shouts filled the chamber. The council members leaned forward, eyes wide. "This is real," Chan said quietly to Hayes. The images shifted to council logs, showing messages from Arinthian leaders begging for aid. The logs changed color to red when allies refused. "Alaras," steadied her voice. "Escape with this device." It records every transmission. "My people died because our allies abandoned us." Tears welled in her eyes, but she held her head high. The chamber fell silent, heavy with sorrow. Envoy Marok spoke again, voice softer. "We will examine this. Evidence. We owe Arinthia justice." Other council member, Elder Zara of the Vasari, nodded. "If this is true, we must act." Hayes felt relief wash over him. He looked at Solara, who allowed herself a small, hopeful smile. The council paused, and the chamber doors slid open. A team of investigators entered to secure the pendant and its data. Once the investigators had taken the device, Solara slumped. On the dais bench, Hayes knelt beside her. "You did well," he said softly. She leaned against him, exhaustion clear on her face. "It was hard," she admitted, "but I had to try." Placed an arm around her shoulders. "I know. And now the council will decide our next steps." She closed her eyes, drawing comfort from his presence. Later, in a quiet hallway, Chan approached Hayes. "The council will convene tomorrow to vote on sanctions against the traitors," she said. "They are asking for your recommendation." Captain Hayes nodded. "Tell them I will support full investigation and aid for Arinthia's rebuilding." Chan smiled. "I will relay your words." Hayes watched her go, then returned to Solara's cabin. He found her gazing at the planet below, her pale face bathed in starlight. He offered her a cup of water. She took it gratefully. "For your help," she said sincerely. Hayes shook his head. "It is my duty," he replied. Solara looked at him, tears in her eyes again. But this time they were tears of gratitude. "You are more than a leader," she whispered. "You are a friend." Hayes smiled gently. "And you are a princess of a proud people. I will not let you face this alone." They spoke quietly until Solara's eyelids grew heavy. Hayes helped her to lie down on the bunk, tucking the blanket around her. "Rest now," he said. "Tomorrow will be a big day." She nodded, eyes closing. Hayes watched as her breathing steadied. Then he stepped into the corridor, determination shining. In his gaze, he would stand by Solara's side in the council. He would speak for justice and for hope. As he returned to the bridge, the horizon glided above Arinthia. The planet's scars were visible, shattered domes, ruined towers, dark rivers of ash. But patches of green glowed in the valleys below. Hinting at life fighting back, Hayes thought of Solara's people and their resilience. He tapped controls to prepare for tomorrow's session, reviewing his notes on the betrayal, on the evidence. On the faces he would face in the council chamber, he felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of purpose. It promised. Solara, he would help her world heal. Tomorrow, he would do all he could to keep that promise. The vastness of space faded behind him as Arinthia filled the viewports. Hayes held on to hope, ready to guide a princess and her people toward a brighter dawn. Captain Hayes stood at the bridge's main viewport as the horizon descended through Arinthia's thin atmosphere. Below him, reconstruction ships glowed like fireflies against the dark scars of the world. He watched as drones carried building modules, two shattered domes, and terraforming units planted fast-growing forests in the ashen valleys. Beside him, Princess Solara gripped his arm, her pale violet eyes wide with both hope and fear. "It is more than I dreamed," she whispered. Her voice trembled with emotion. Hayes nodded. "Your people are strong," he said gently. "They will build again." Solara drew a shaky breath. "Yet I worry for their safety," she admitted. Some may still seek to harm Arinthia. Hayes turned to look at her, concern etched on his face. We will guard this world, he promised. The horizon, and I stand with you. They traveled down to the surface in a drop shuttle. Solara rode beside Hayes, clutching her pendant close. When the shuttle touched down near the Royal Reconstruction Center, workers paused to bow as she stepped out. Her robes swept the dusty ground, and Hayes offered his arm as they walked toward the center's entrance. Inside, engineers and architects bustled around holodisks that displayed blueprints of new domes, water systems, and power grids. A tall engineer approached them. Your Highness, we have critical news, he said, voice low. Solara's brow furrowed. What is it? She asked. The engineer looked at Hayes, then back at Solara. We detected unauthorized transmissions from the old council bunker, he said. Someone is trying to sabotage our efforts. Hayes exchanged a serious glance with Solara. Show us, he said. The engineer led them to a console, where red alerts blinked beside schematics of the reconstruction center. Hayes studied the schematics. Hidden devices were planted on key power conduits. If they activated, the main energy dome would collapse, plunging the center into darkness and chaos. Solara's hand flew to her mouth. They cannot destroy what we have just begun, she said, voice firm. Hayes nodded. We must act quickly. He tapped a command, isolating the sabotage signals and tracing their source. The console beeped, revealing an old service corridor beneath the bunker. Dust motes danced in the air. Hayes turned to Solara. Stay here, he said. I will lead a team to disable those devices. Solara's eyes filled with worry, but she nodded. Be safe, she whispered. Hayes offered a reassuring smile and strode out, flanked by security officers and engineer specialists. They reached the service corridor through a reinforced hatch. The air was stale, and the walls bore cracks from past attacks. Hayes held his phaser-style tool ready. Officers cleared the path ahead while engineers scanned for power signatures. Suddenly, a low hum grew louder. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a cluster of device pods attached to the conduit. An officer shouted, There they are. Hayes knelt beside the conduit and examined the pods. Each was keyed to the planetary grid, set to overload in minutes. He barked orders. Cut the primary link and isolate the secondary circuits. Engineers moved quickly, severing wires and rerouting power through secure lines. Sparks flew, and the hum faded. One device hissed and exploded in a harmless discharge, but the others went quiet. Hayes exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. We stopped them, he said. The team removed the pods and stored them for evidence. Hayes stood and looked down the corridor. Someone on this world wants to keep Arinthia weak, he said. An engineer nodded. We will rebuild, but we must find who did this. Hayes agreed. He would help Solara uncover the traitors. Back at the reconstruction center, Solara waited anxiously. When Hayes and his team emerged, she rushed to his side. Did you stop them? She asked. Hayes nodded and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. They will not harm this world today, he said. Relief flooded her face. Thank you, she whispered. Hayes looked into her eyes. We must learn who sent these devices, he said. They may be the same traitors who betrayed your people. Over. The next hour, Solara joined Hayes and his security team in reviewing the devices. Each bore traces of programming data linked to a faction within the old council nobles who had profited from Arinthia's collapse. Hayes frowned. They wanted to watch it burn, he said. Solara's hands trembled. They betrayed our trust, then tried to destroy our rebuilding. She drew in a steady breath. We must bring them to justice. Hayes placed a hand over hers. And we will. With evidence secured, Hayes arranged for a hearing in a provisional court set up in the reconstruction center. Nobles were summoned. Under guard, Solara stood before them, pendant glowing softly at her throat. She spoke with quiet authority, presenting the betrayal records and the sabotage device data. The nobles' faces fell as guilt dawned in their eyes. Some fell to their knees, asking for mercy. Solara listened, her violet eyes shining with resolve and compassion. After the hearing, Solara addressed the people of Arinthia. gathered in a cleared plaza. They listened as she spoke of forgiveness for those who truly regretted their crimes, and justice for those who continued to harm the world. Hayes stood beside her in uniform, proud. Acela looked at him and smiled, strength and gratitude in her expression. That night, as rebuilding lights twinkled across the valley, Hayes and Solara walked along a glass pathway overlooking the work. She leaned on his arm. "Today we took a step forward," she said softly. Hayes nodded. "And tomorrow we take another." Solara looked at the stars above. "With you by my side, I believe we can restore Orinthia to its former glory." Hayes smiled and squeezed her hand. "And together we will make it stronger." Beneath the twin moons of Orinthia, they stood in silence, watching the hopeful glow of a world reborn. Far below, the first new domes rose above the ashes, proof that even the deepest wounds could heal. As they gazed into the night, Captain Hayes and Princess Solara knew their journey was far from over. But they would face every challenge together, guiding Orinthia toward a brighter dawn. Captain Hayes stood on the balcony of the provisional palace as dawn broke over the valley. The first light touched the new domes and glass walkways below, painting them gold. Beside him, Princess Solara drew her robe tighter against the morning. Chill. She watched the workers below, moving in steady lines to clear debris and carry supplies. Hayes studied her profile, calm but determined. He knew the next steps would test both of them and all of Orinthia more than any trial so far. Boarded a recovery cruiser that slipped through the hazy sky. Inside the cabin, Solara held her pendant against the soft glow of the control panels. She traced the tiny symbols with her fingertip, remembering the day she escaped her burning world. Hayes sat opposite her, reviewing reports. "The frontier. Stations are under pressure," he said. "We need to secure the supply lines from the northern mines." Solara nodded. "Those mines hold the crystal, or we need to power the domes," she said. "If we lose them, reconstruction will stall." The cruiser touched down at Orinthia's northern plateau. The air was thin and cold, and jagged peaks rose on all sides. A group of miners and engineers waited beside cargo transports. As Solara stepped out, they bowed deeply, gratitude in their expressions. Hayes offered his arm, and Solara accepted. Together, they walked through the camp. Miners looked tired but hopeful. Machines hummed as they processed raw rock into shimmering crystal fragments. One engineer, Kara, approached them. Her face was streaked with soot and concern. "Princess," she said, "we had another attack last night." Solara's brows knitted. "What happened?" Kara pointed toward the mountain pass. "Raiders ambushed our transport. It destroyed 2 cargo convoys. We lost ore and several transports." Hayes frowned. "Raiders," he repeated. Kara nodded. "They wear the old guard's colors. We think they serve the same traitors who sabotaged the palace." Solara's face paled. "They want to starve us of resources," she said. "Cannot let that happen." Hayes stepped forward. "We'll escort your next shipment," he said, voice firm. "And I will lead a patrol to find these raiders." Kara blinked with relief. "Thank you, Captain." Solara laid a hand on Hayes's arm. "Be careful," she said.
Hayes gave her
A small, reassuring smile. "I will," he promised. An hour later, a convoy of hover transports rumbled toward the mines, flanked by armed escorts. Hayes rode at the front with Solara, who watched the rugged landscape roll by. Clusters of black rock rose like castles across the plains. Beyond them, shadowed passes promised danger. Hayes checked his scanners. "We are close," he said. "The raiders could strike at any moment." Solara nodded, steeling her resolve. As they entered a narrow canyon, the convoy slowed. Hayes spotted movement on the rocky ledges, figures waiting above. Before alarms could sound, rocks tumbled down, blocking the path. The lead transport lurched and came to a halt. Hayes drew his sidearm tool and signaled the escorts. "Take cover!" he shouted. Solara ducked behind a crate, heart pounding. Blasts rang out as raiders fired from above, their weapons sleek and unfamiliar. Hayes sprinted toward the first transport, crouching behind its hull. He tapped commands into his wrist console, activating a protective shield around the convoy. The explosions weakened, and the escorts returned fire, driving the raiders back. Solara rose and joined Hayes, holding her pendant high. It glowed briefly, sending a pulse that disabled nearby raider weapons. They fell silent, shields drained. Hayes seized the moment and led a charge toward the pass exit. Raiders retreated down the narrow path. Hayes and the escorts pursued them. Clearing obstacles as they went, Solara trailed close behind, her presence a steady comfort. They rounded a bend and found the raider leader, a tall figure in dark armor, struggling to rally his men. Hayes raised his sidearm tool. "Down," he ordered. His tone left no question. The raider leader hesitated, glancing at Solara's glowing pendant. Recognition flickered in his eyes. "It cannot be," the leader muttered. He dropped his weapon. His men followed suit. Hayes approached, careful. "Why attack your own people?" he asked. The leader bowed his head. "We serve those who betrayed Orinthia," he admitted. "They promised power if we kept the world weak." Solara stepped forward, anger and sorrow in her violet eyes. "You killed innocent miners," she said softly. "You brought pain to our people." Tears shone on her lashes. "We were desperate. I am sorry." He did not look up. Hayes placed a hand on Solara's shoulder. "Find the supplies and bring them back," he said to the escorts. Then he turned to the leader. "You will be judged by the provisional court," he said. "But if you truly repent, you may help rebuild Orinthia." The leader nodded, relief and shame mingling on his face. "I will," he vowed. The convoy resumed its journey, now guarded by both escorts and former raiders. Supplies reached the mine safely. Miners cheered as the crystal ore was delivered. Solara addressed the gathered workers. Her voice was clear. "Today we showed that together we can overcome fear and betrayal," she said. "Let this moment remind us that hope guides our strength." Applause rose around her, echoing off the canyon walls. As dusk settled, Solara and Hayes returned to the provisional palace by cruiser. Inside, candles glowed along corridors, and the air smelled of fresh food. Solara sank into a chair by the window, exhaustion in her posture. Hayes brought her a cup of warm tea. She sipped gratefully. "Today was hard," she said softly. Hayes nodded, but we prevailed. Solara looked at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I could not have done this without you," she said. Hayes shook his head. "We did this together." They sat in comfortable silence as night deepened. Beyond the window, Orinthia's moons glimmered above the domes. Each light marked progress, a promise of renewal. Solara placed her hand over Hayes. "We must prepare for more challenges tomorrow," she said. Hayes squeezed her hand gently. "And I will be by your side for all of them," he replied. In the quiet glow of candlelight, a new hope took root. Princess Solara and Captain Hayes had faced betrayal, sabotage, and violence, and they had emerged stronger. The journey to restore Orinthia was far from over, but they had shown that courage, trust, and compassion could bind a fractured world. As they looked toward the future, hand in hand, they knew that no darkness could halt a people determined to rebuild. Captain Hayes awoke before dawn to the soft hum of the horizon's engines. He dressed quickly and made his way to the observation deck. Princess Solara was already there, wrapped in a thick cloak against the chill. She watched the pale light of Orinthia's twin moons fade into a soft glow. Hayes joined her silently, offering a cup of warm tea. Solara accepted it gratefully and sipped slowly, her violet eyes thoughtful. "What weighs on your mind?" Hayes asked gently. Solara stared at the horizon. "We've secured supplies and defended our people," she said. "But the council's work is not yet done." She set down her cup. "We must build trust among our neighbors. Only then will Orinthia be safe." Hayes nodded. "Diplomacy will be as important as reconstruction," he agreed. They walked to the Provisional Council chamber. Walls of clear glass overlooked the lights of the capital below. Solara tapped a console to open the chamber doors. From nearby worlds waited on holoscreens. Hayes and Solara took their places at the head table. The engine's hum fell quiet as Solara cleared her throat. "Honored representatives, she began, her voice steady. "We stand on the brink of a new era for Arinthia. We seek friendship and cooperation. Help us rebuild, and we will stand with you in peace and defense." She paused, letting her words sink in. The faces on the screens nodded or remained neutral. Envoy Torin of the Valari world spoke first. His face shimmered with blue light. "Princess Solara, your courage inspires us," he said. "Valari will send medical teams and engineers to aid your efforts." He smiled warmly. Solara's lips curved in relief. "Thank you, Envoy Torin," she said. "Your help means much." Next came Ambassador Rhea of the Onyx Federation. Her expression was cautious. "We will consider requests for trade agreements," she said. "We value stability in this region." Solara nodded. "We welcome your support," she replied. The chamber chimed softly as messages scrolled in, offers of aid, negotiations, and questions. Hayes watched as Solara fielded inquiries with calm confidence. When a representative questioned the safety of Arinthia's orbit, Solara explained how the Horizon would patrol the skies. Hayes added technical details. "Our sensors and the Horizon's escorts will secure the orbital lanes. No unauthorized ships will approach." The representatives exchanged impressed looks. After an hour of discussions, a draft of a cooperation treaty lay on the table. Solara examined it, then signed with a graceful sweep of her hand. Hayes signed as witness. The chamber doors opened, and the representatives applauded, their faces bright. Solara bowed deeply. "Thank you," she said. Hayes felt pride at her side. Outside, Solara and Hayes walked through a courtyard filled with newly planted trees. Green shoots poked through the ash. Workers paused in their tasks to salute Solara. She smiled and lifted her hand in greeting. Hayes watched a small sapling take root, feeling hope grow to dot suddenly. Alarms sounded across the courtyard.
Ow.
Lights flashed on nearby buildings. Hayes grabbed Solara's arm. "Follow me," he said, as they dashed toward the command center. Inside, Engineer Kara and Lieutenant Rossi stood before a holoscreen. Traces of unauthorized energy readings blinked on a map of the city. "There's a flare in Sector 7, Kara said. "An unknown ship just landed." Hayes frowned. "We dispatched all escorts to the northern plateau," he said. "We have no ships nearby." He tapped controls, sealing city gates, empowering defensive shields. Solara watched with concern. "Data." Transmission crackled through. "Horizon to Council Palace," said a nervous voice. "We detect a civilian transport overriding its beacon. It is heading straight for the palace gates." Leapt to the console. "Identify that ship," he ordered. Sensors locked on the transport. It bore no standard registry. Its hull was battered. "It's carrying refugees," Rossi reported. "They're calling for aid." Solara's eyes filled with compassion. "Open the gates," she said firmly. "We will help them." Hayes hesitated. Protocols demanded caution. But Solara's trust in her people guided him. He nodded and disengaged the locks. The transport glided in, doors swinging open. Dozens of refugees spilled onto the plaza. Their faces were tired and frightened. Solara stepped forward. "Welcome," she said softly. "You are safe here." The refugees dropped to their knees, tears of relief shining on their cheeks. Hayes watched Solara kneel beside them, offering water and blankets. One refugee, an elder with silver hair, looked up at Solara. "We fled the border wars," he said, voice trembling. He had nowhere else to go. Solara placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You will find a home here," she promised. Volunteers moved forward with food and medical aid. Hayes joined. Solara handing out supplies. He saw gratitude in the refugees' eyes and felt proud of Arinthia's people. After the last blanket was given, Solara stood and addressed the crowd. "Our Inchins open our arms to those in need," she declared. "Your journey ends here. Your future begins with us." Applause and shouts of thanks rang out. As evening fell, Solara and Hayes returned to the provisional palace. They walked along, corridors lit by lanterns. Solara leaned on Hayes's arm. "Today we balanced strength with kindness," she said softly. "Noted." "Your people follow your example," he replied, in Solara's quarters. She removed her cloak and placed the pendant on her bedside table. Hayes watched her. "You saved those refugees," he said. Solara smiled tiredly. "They needed hope," she said. Hayes sat beside her. "Arintia grows stronger under your leadership," he said. Solara took his hand. "And I grow stronger with your support," she replied. They sat in silence, the soft glow of lanterns surrounding them. Outside, Arinthia's new lights shone against the night sky. Domes gleamed, trees whispered in the breeze, and distant engines hummed with purpose. Solara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her duties, but also the power of her people united. Hayes stood and offered a final bow. "Rest well, Princess," he said. Solara nodded and lay down, exhaustion pulling her into sleep. Hayes watched her for a moment, then turned off the light. He paused by the window, looking at the world they had fought to protect. In the silent night, hope pulsed through Arinthia. Each light, each tree, each step taken in kindness built a future free from fear. And as Captain Hayes prepared for the challenges of tomorrow, he knew that with Princess Solara's compassion and humanity's resolve, Arinthia would rise from the ashes stronger than ever. Captain Hayes woke before sunrise, his thoughts full of the tasks ahead. Today marked the official reopening of Arinthia's Grand Plaza. He dressed in his uniform and made his way to the balcony outside Princess Solara's quarters. She stood, there already wrapped in a pale blue cloak, gazing at the glowing city below. The first light of Arinthia's twin moons faded into dawn. Hayes offered her a cup of warm tea. Solara smiled and accepted it. They walked down the marble steps of the provisional palace together. Crowds gathered in the plaza, their faces bright. With hope, stalls stood at the edges, offering fresh fruit and flowers. Children chased each other around newly planted trees. Banners of white and violet fluttered in the breeze, celebrating Arinthia's rebirth. Solara and Hayes reached the center stage. Where a simple podium waited, Princess Solara took a steady breath and stepped forward. She held her pendant in one hand, the crystal glowing softly. Hayes stood just behind her, his presence calm and reassuring. Solara raised her voice so every person could hear. "Today we begin a new chapter in Arinthia's history," she said. "We rebuild not just walls and towers, but our trust and our spirit. Together, we will make this world a home for all who seek peace." Cheers rose around her, echoing across the plaza. Hayes nodded with pride. After Solara finished, she turned to him and offered a gentle bow. Hayes stepped up and spoke in a clear voice. "On behalf of the Horizon and our allies, I promise our continued support. We will guard your skies, share our knowledge, and stand as partners in peace." More applause followed. After the ceremony, Solara moved through the crowd, shaking hands and offering warm words. Hayes walked beside her, helping an elder carry his basket and guiding a mother toward shelter tents. Solara paused when she saw a young girl holding a damaged toy. The girl's eyes brimmed with tears. Solara knelt and took the toy in her hands. She examined the broken parts, then pressed a small symbol on her pendant. The crystal glowed, and the toy repaired itself. Stitching the tears and reshaping the broken pieces, the girl gasped in delight and hugged Solara's hand. Solara smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. Hayes watched the scene with awe. He felt the strength of Solara's compassion. Many whispered that the pendant held a gift of healing. Solara merely laughed softly and offered the girl a gentle pat on the head. Around them, people pointed, smiled, and cheered as the sun climbed higher. Solara and Hayes departed for the council's starbase. They traveled in a sleek cruiser, the pendant secured at Solara's throat. In the cabin, Solara looked at Hayes. "We have done much," she said, "but there is still more to do." Hayes nodded. "Our work is never done," he replied. "We will guide Arinthia's growth and defend its people." They arrived at the starbase, where representatives from allied worlds waited. The hall was bright with banners and flags of different nations. Solara and Hayes were led to the central dais. This time, the gathering was not for evidence, but for celebration and planning. Envoy Merrick of the Korvax Order stepped forward. He offered Solara a small crystal sculpture carved in the shape of Arinthia's moons. "For you," he said, "to honor your courage and vision." Solara accepted it with gratitude. The meeting turned to practical matters. Engineers presented designs for new habitat domes. Agricultural experts shared plans for seed distribution. Hayes and Solara listened, asked questions, and offered suggestions. When a debate arose over which world would help with orbital defense, Solara spoke with quiet authority. "Let each offer their gift," she said. "We need not limit ourselves. Together, we will share our strengths." The room fell into approving silence, then broke into applause. Later, in a small garden courtyard aboard the starbase, Solara and Hayes found a quiet moment. Flowers bloomed around them, their scent sweet and calming. Solara held the crystal sculpture and turned it in her hands. "I never imagined so much kindness," she said softly. Hayes smiled. "You inspired it," he replied. At him, her violet eyes shining, "And you have been my guide." They spoke of the future, schools for children, libraries for scholars, and a fleet of rebuilding vessels. Solara outlined her hopes for a cultural exchange program. Hayes offered to help train young diplomats. They planned festivals and ceremonies to celebrate unity. Every idea grew under their shared vision. As evening fell, they returned to Aranthea in their cruiser. The planet glowed below, lights tracing new roads and domes. Solara watched in wonder. Hayes took her hand. "Look at your world," he said. "You have given it new life." Solara leaned on him. "And you have given me hope," she replied. They landed near the reconstruction center. Workers paused to greet them with smiles and cheers. Solara stepped out first, her robes trailing in the soft light, offering her his arm. Together, they walked through the center's courtyard, where the first new water fountains flowed and flowers bloomed in raised beds. A group of children approached, each holding a drawing. They knelt before Solara and Hayes, offering their paintings, scenes of the horizon flying over domes, of Solara standing beside Hayes, and of Arinthia restored. Solara knelt beside them, her heart full. Hayes bent to look at their art. "These are beautiful," he said. The children beamed. Solara took one drawing and held it to her chest. "I will keep this always," she said. Night fell, and the reconstruction center glowed under a star-filled sky. Solara and Hayes stood on a small hill overlooking the lights. She pressed her pendant, and it cast a soft glow across her face. "This light guided me through my darkest hour," she said. Hayes placed a hand on her shoulder. "And now it guides all of Arinthia," he said. Solara smiled and leaned against him. In that quiet moment, two hearts found peace. Princess Solara and Captain Hayes had journeyed from sorrow to renewal. They had faced betrayal, danger, and loss. They stood together, ready to build a future of hope and unity. Beneath the twin moons, the world they loved pulsed with life. And as they gazed at the glowing domes and rising spires, they knew their story had only just begun, an ever-unfolding tale of courage, compassion, and the strength of a people reborn.